like kids who are in their teens, like college students, I don't think a lot of them are turning on like Food Network. They're like tuning in to the old kind of generations of cookbook authors, recipe developers, things like that. Like video content is really what young people consume, whether that is on YouTube or TikTok right now.
You're listening to the Taste Podcast. I'm Editor-in-Chief Matt Rodbard, here with Senior Editor Anna Hezel.
Today on the show, Matt is speaking with Jenny Zhang, a writer and cultural critic who has worked at Eater, Slate, and currently as a staff writer at Gawker. She is also the co-host of the podcast Criticism is Dead. Matt, what did you and Jenny talk about?
I've long been a fan of Jenny's incisive journalism and podcasting and wanted to have her on the show. We talked about what interests her in the world of food and about some of her memorable writing that has covered things like food TikTok, Pizza Hut in China, and the regular food of our lives, which she covers in her Gawker column called Regular Food Review. It's a must-read. I love it. We also talk about the world of NFTs in food. What is going on in NFTs in food, I ask? Well, that is my question, and she answers it well.
Here's Matt catching up with Jenny.
Jenny Zhang, welcome to the Taste Podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
You merged fast food with real journalism and memoir and writing with your 2018 Eater story, which won awards, and it's about Pizza Hut in Beijing. And I'll link to it in our show notes, and I recommend our listeners here to click on that link because it's a great piece. But to summarize, what was that piece about? Like, what did you want to say about Pizza Hut in Beijing?
Yeah, that piece, which I wrote, I think like when I was right after I had left Eater, so I was working on Slate, and I did that as a freelance piece for Eater. Basically, Eater used to have, maybe it still has, I'm not really sure, but it had this long running series called Life in Chains. Basically, personal essays, like sort of memoir style essays from writers who are remembering parts of their lives as it relates to these big chains that a lot of people are familiar with. So I was interested in doing this in particular because my family sort of had a connection to Pizza Hut in that every year or every 2 years, whenever we were able to go back to China and see my grandmother on my mother's side, one of the things that we always do is we buy Pizza Hut in China, in Beijing together, and bring it home to her in her apartment and eat it together. And this is because when she used to live with us in the U.S. when I was a child growing up, she had sort of experienced pizza here in the U.S. and that was sort of a tradition that she took back with her when she returned home to Beijing. So yeah, I was interested in doing something for this series, Life in Chains. I definitely had this like sort of tangible topic to write about. I was also interested in doing something of a reversal or a flip on like this idea that I think is like pretty prevalent in a lot of essays about chains with by like the children of immigrants in the US, like members of the diaspora, where in America it becomes sort of very important to have this American chain like in their lives. Like that is maybe what sort of a family that immigrated here, that's sort of like the thing that helps them feel more connected to this new land, this new home country. So I was interested in that idea, but kind of I thought it was funny at least that my experience was almost like a reversal in a way. I went to China to experience this very American chain. And that's like the way that my grandmother in China felt connected to us. So kind of playing with that idea a little bit. But yeah, I was happy to do this. It was kind of one of my first longer pieces, I think, and definitely one of my first longer essays that I've published. And, I still have fond memories of, writing this and being able to get it online and out in the world.
Absolutely. And like the reversal you speak about is crystal clear, that thread throughout the piece. And I feel like you are threading a needle there, because you can kind of, you didn't want to write about the thing, which is like the way Pizza Hut is portrayed or cooked in China as like some kind of oddity to the American gaze, I guess. I don't know. You did it in a way that felt extremely real and personal to you. And I think that was hard to do. So I recommend our listeners check that out. I wrote in my notes, and I didn't write anything more, but I was like, deep breath, food TikTok, because like deep breath, like, can we talk about this?
Yeah.
Anna and I are working on a story or two. I am torn big time. And like, I feel like food TikTok is extremely fun and cool, but it's getting a little bit crazy out there. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I use TikTok a lot. I'm on there probably more hours of the day than I should be, for sure. And I do consume like a lot of food TikToks and food videos on that app, I would say. I mean, I enjoy it a lot. Like, I enjoy the kinds of maybe like normal cooking, I guess you could say, that people do on there now. And especially I love the like what I ate in a day sort of food diary videos. But yeah, there is a sort of interesting thing in that, especially I've noticed for what it means for like recipe developers and the original authors of recipes, like how their stuff gets translated onto TikTok and sort of stripped of context, stripped of authorship, and distributed widely across the app is kind of an interesting phenomenon, I'd say. Probably not great for the original creators of any of these recipes. But yeah, that's just like one small thread, I think. What are some of your like concerns about food TikTok? I'm really curious.
Jenny, I actually been thinking about TikTok a lot because I consume it as well. Like, I really love it. And I like you, I probably consume too much of it. And I love jumping into folks' kitchens. I like the normie core stuff. I like the stuff that goes viral. I'm really interested in it. There's no negativity from my end. I probably misspoke. I feel like I am curious if the TikTok star of today that we're following will become the next food star, and if there's a transition of energy from, the BA Test Kitchen and Food Network, where we've anointed big stars and given them books and they're great and they have platforms. If like TikTok is like the next like real influencer kind of moment or venue, it's more of a venue because it is such an amazing algorithm. It finds an audience better than anything. And I think they're really democratizing food in a cool way. So that's like I wouldn't even call it concern. It's just my observation. I'm just very curious. And you cover this. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we are seeing like the rise of new kinds of tastemakers, influencers, especially among younger audiences. Like kids who are in their teens, like college students. I don't think a lot of them are turning on like Food Network. They're like tuning into the older kind of generations of cookbook authors, recipe developers, things like that. Like video content is really what young people consume, whether that is on YouTube or TikTok right now. And so I do see like this new class of, I guess what you would call like food stars rising up on it. I don't know what the next step is for them from here. Like, is the move to get a cookbook deal? And I'm sure like some of them already have, or to get a network TV show or like a larger YouTube series. I don't know like what the next step of stardom is. Like, what is the new kind of like signifier that, you've made it, you're on to the next level? Is it going to be the same as it was for millennial, Gen X, like older generations? I really am not sure. Like, do younger people care about cookbooks anymore? I don't know. I mean, I hope people still love reading, for my own sake, like, personally and career wise. So I do hope people still love like text and like these things that they aren't just like consuming, blankly online.
Well, we're going to have Eaton Eats on the Taste podcast in a future episode, and he has a book coming out. So he's actually, by my calculations, one of the first big TikTok stars to have a cookbook come out. I think Joanna from the Korean Vegan is a special case, because I feel like that book, while she had a massive TikTok following and a social following, that book on its own was incredible and didn't necessarily break out because of her platform. It was just a really cool book in general and was praised rightfully so. But we'll have to ask him like what honestly he thinks about his book and his, if people are going to buy his book. Let's talk about Gawker. Legendary brand. The history of Gawker is rich, and you can Google and find out the ups and downs of the brand. And you're part of a new Gawker. I believe that's a trademark, the new Gawker with capital letters. I'm a fan of Gawker prior and now. It's always been like 5 steps ahead of most of the media, and the style of writing is extremely adventurous and bold and brave. But I wanted to hear about you because you're one of the main food writers on Gawker. You write about a lot of other topics, and you write about the news and culture, but you also write a food column. But I would like to hear about what the current vibe is at Gawker.
Yeah. So I was a big fan of the old Gawker, original Gawker. I read it a lot when I was a college student. And I followed like very closely my favorite writers and like the ultimate demise of that project. And yeah, like getting to participate in this current iteration has been exciting. It's been up and down for sure, like especially trying to get this new venture off the ground, seeing what everyone's reaction to it is. And but mostly it's just like, yeah, we keep chugging along, we keep doing our thing, writing what we want to, and just trust that like it's a dedicated audience will sort of continue to tune in to what we're doing. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm approaching it. I, of course, like continue to blog on a regular basis, like just like news blogs, like things happening, not just in food, but in like celebrity culture or like internet stuff or politics, things like that. And then I've had the time also to be able to work on some longer pieces that I'm, really grateful I've been able to find a home for here, like some, I guess, like thornier culture topics. So yeah, that's kind of like a summary of what I've been doing since I guess it's been maybe 9.
It's been almost a year,
like
right?
9 months, 10 months. It's been almost a year.
10 months. What was the pitch to you to come to Gawker and with your background as a primarily not fully but primarily as a food writer? I hope that doesn't undersell you. You just had a lot of clips in food. So what was the sales pitch to come join Gawker and be the main voice for food at this brand? What were they looking to do?
Well, I guess, and I can't really speak to like what they were looking for in me specifically, but I mean, yeah, I guess like I primarily wrote in food, but like not exclusively about food itself. I used to tweet a lot more and about things like media and other things that are mostly not food related. And so I think maybe that is what got their attention. And I used to have a newsletter of my own that I used to sort of dissect long form pieces by other writers that I liked. And that was also sort of an exercise in, I don't know, displaying like some level of taste or analysis or something like that. So I think maybe those were things that kind of were on my side, I guess, in terms of maybe them approaching me.
I loved your annotated newsletter where you picked a long form piece and you did basically cliff notes and comment bubbles about leads, about kickers, about structure. It's a real like nerdy writerly kind of concept and amazing.
Thank you. I wish I could pick it back up, but currently still too much stuff to do.
Too much to do. Those takes a lot of
Yeah,
work.
but yeah, so I guess like that was on my end, and then like on their end, like their sales pitch was basically, you can come here and write about whatever you want. Like you don't have to just write about food. Since I guess like that is something that I've been like vocal about, where I'm like I have a lot of interests that are mostly not food related. I consider myself like a sort of generalist in that way. So that was kind of the pitch, and since I was such a fan of the original Gawker, it was kind of a hard opportunity to pass up. I imagine like a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. And I'm typically very scared of change, but I was like, whether this is good or bad, like this will probably do something. So yeah, I said yes. And I do mostly write about things that are not food related, but like you said, I have a semi-regular food column called Regular Food Reviews. That's just sort of like a passion project of my own.
So let's talk about that. I love Regular Food Review, which, I mean, as the title suggests, there's no, the title, let's just talk about the title, because I'm like kind of stumbling because I'm like, is it regular or what are you doing with that title? And first off.
Yeah. So my original title that I wanted to call it was Ordinary Food Reviews, if that tells you anything. But I think we went with Regular Food Reviews because it both describes like what I was trying to do, the ordinary / regular / like quotidian aspect of the things I was consuming, but also regular as in like this will be kind of like a regular column, a regular series. So yeah, it's mostly just me giving very short reviews about the ordinary things I consume in everyday life, whether that is like a handful of chips or some frozen microwave food or a really nice like meal at a restaurant or something like that, or a home cooked dish like on a Friday night or whatever. It's really just like no criteria except like, it's something I eat on a regular basis, just an ordinary food.
I love it. And you wrote one, I'm just going to start and you can finish. I recently bought a 52-pack of Quaker instant oatmeal. Talk about that one.
Yeah, that one was the recent one. So as I explained in this one, I recently had like a tooth extraction thing. It's the weird thing with my teeth. I have a bunch of extra teeth that are not supposed to be there, and one of them decided to erupt out of my gum line for no apparent reason. So I had this tooth extraction that I was pretty sure would be painful, and I'd have to like sort of plan my way around it in terms of food. So I bought this huge box of oatmeal from Costco, and I've been like chipping away at that, although I've like reincorporated totally like regular food into my like consumption habits again. But still, like I'm very glad to have bought that oatmeal because it revived this sort of passion for oatmeal that I have not indulged in for a long time.
You haven't in a while, and you're doing okay?
Yeah, totally fine. I'm like eating hard foods. I'm eating crunchy foods, like stuff that I probably still should be a little bit careful about. But yeah, there's always oatmeal if I'm really just like not feeling like cooking or buying or doing anything in terms of effort. It's there for me.
I love that. I recall I was a fan of the apple. There was also cinnamon. There was also the original, which was so boring. Mm-hmm. I hated that.
Yeah, the apple cinnamon one is like very good.
Yeah, I agree. What's a future topic that we're going to read in on Gawker?
I can't say anything like for sort of our broader coverage, but yeah. No worries. I do have one. I think I'll probably write about dumplings with like wings, like the Japanese like gyoza style wings, like the crispy lacy bottom. So I made that I would say within the last month, and I was struck by like how easy it is to get those crispy wings, and I'll probably reincorporate that into my regular tricks when it comes to dumplings. That's
dope. So you're saying like we've written about that, like the dumpling skirt, like that crispy bottom.
The skirt, the wings. So I will probably just review that regularly as my next ordinary regular food review.
Love that. I think Tatiana Batista wrote a piece about that for Taste a few years ago, and I'll make sure to link to that because I love that on your piece too, because that is definitely the key to the gyoza experience, right?
Yeah.
Having that wing. Second deep breath moment. So deep breath.
Okay.
Food and chef NFTs.
Oh, no.
Exhale. Okay. Oh my, I'm like kind of at a loss, but what do you got to say about that?
Well, I haven't been paying a lot of attention to like what chefs in particular are doing in this realm. What have they been doing? Are there like big name chefs who have been like going all in on NFTs?
Absolutely. It seems so for those who haven't heard of the term NFT, non-fungible token, it's crypto-backed assets or something a chef could sell in the metaverse. Pat, our producer, is shaking his head, which I love because it's NFTs are complicated to explain. I really didn't do a great job there, but I've seen chefs selling digital food, which
Oh my God.
is
All right.
or art that is considered food, like burgers and pizzas and stuff like that. I'm not going to snark on the NFT I think it's too early to really, kill the NFT. And there's a lot of fun there, but I feel like the food stuff is tough. It feels a little opportunistic at this moment.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, NFTs in general, right now is like the sort of cash grab moment. Like there is a lot of opportunity, whether that is being exploited by bad actors or it's, other kinds of people who see the opportunity in this right now. Food is an interesting one because, yeah, NFTs as they have been, I guess, like used so far is mostly as like an art object or what people say is like quote unquote art object, essentially collectible and like
big air quotes.
Yeah, I would definitely like that is sort of betraying my skepticism surrounding this so far. But yeah, like the point of it is to look at it, but also mostly just to own it. So food, the point of it is to eat it, which you cannot do remotely within a food NFT. I guess you can look at it. I guess like the main point still is to just like own something, own this thing, own this asset. And I guess like for that purpose, sure, they probably fulfill that. But it does seem very strange. I don't know. I have like skepticism surrounding this entire sort of project. So I will not be speaking from an unbiased point of view.
Yeah, I think food sometimes transcends like the taste, and I think it becomes cultural currency and almost real currency when you're talking about a limited hamburger drop. Literally, people use that kind of language around food, and so it's like more about the cronut. Even like Dominique Ansel did that back in the day, and like so like you're saying, okay, you can't eat an NFT. Sure, I agree. But a lot of people eat food for now about the food part. It's about the digital asset, the Instagram post or the word of mouth you're giving your friend. So I could see some creative chefs using it to show creativity and talk about their expertise or show their expertise in food. It still seems extremely douchey to me.
No, but that's a really interesting way to think about it. I hadn't thought about it from that angle before. Like, yeah, so much of food already, or like the hyped food it's already plays as a form of digital currency. So this is just like the natural evolution of that. That's really smart.
I mean, I appreciate that. I think it's there's no real answers here. I think that this first wave though is the cash grab. I fully agree with you. There'll be an evening out of that, and I think there is a future with the metaverse and your life, in Web3 in that world. So
not looking forward to it, but yes, that seems inevitable in some sense.
I love that you say you're not looking forward to it. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I have a few more questions. Yeah. I want to talk to you about just your media diet in terms of who you like to read and subscribe to in food media. I feel like you've got great instincts and taste, and I'm always going to ask you like who you're reading these days.
Sure, yeah. So I continue to check Eater very regularly. Not just because, I have a lingering fondness, although I do, of course, for Olive Eater. So like the local Eater sites like The city site's great for just general food and restaurant news. Eater.com, is still a great visit for longer features, reports, interesting takes, things like that. Otherwise, I do tend to like to read food sort of like as a beat in like larger, more general interest publications, like for New Yorker Magazine, like what they're saying about food, the Times Magazine, what they're doing with food, things like that. And of course, I do have like my favorite writers and people who have newsletters as well. Like Alicia Kennedy, I think remains a big favorite, because she also like approaches food as this, entry point for discussing a lot of other things like labor, colonialism, everything. So she's a really, really smart read, and I
plant-based diets.
Yeah.
She's on that beat extremely thoroughly, and I agree with you. She's written for Taste, and I've read her newsletter since day one, and it's a great read.
Yeah. So I love reading her newsletter. In terms of other newsletters, my friend and former Eater colleague, James Hansen, he for a while ran a Substack newsletter called Indigestion. That was sort of like a roundup summary of like what's going on in food media. I think he still has it on pause right now, but I used to like reading that a lot. And then Vittles London, like a lot of people I'm sure have named that, but that's another really great newsletter that is also functioning as more or less like a fully fledged publication right now. Like that's some great food writing out of London and the UK, even though I have never been, but it really makes me like want to go and travel and try all these different places. I mean, when I worked at Eater, I feel like half of the pieces that we like sort of dropped in Slack and were like, hey, check this out, or like, I'm jealous we didn't do this, was like stuff from Taste. Yeah, especially like
that was nice.
This is like genuine, and I really loved. I don't keep up that much with food news anymore, but Taste is a really good place for kind of more magazine style, interesting probes into things that are going on right now. So that was also a big favorite when I, had to think about food for a living every day.
Nice of you to say, and we've interviewed the editor of Vittles, and James has written for Taste, and great call on those. We'll definitely mark those in our notes. Thank you for shouting out. Do you have any more that you want to shout out?
Oh wait, actually, I will say The Counter is also really good for like a kind of different look at the topic of news. Like they covered a lot from the sort of labor or agricultural or policy point of view. So I think they were formerly known as New Food Economy, but they've rebranded as The Counter.
Great read, covering policy, covering the Farm Bill, which is ever changing and ever debated and so critical to our country. The Counter is a must, and I forget about The Counter when we're doing our Friday links roundup on our newsletter, and I should go there more often. Great reminder, Jenny. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I have to ask you about cookbooks too, because we deal with cookbooks a lot here at Taste. Do you have some favorites, either past or present? I want to ask you about your media diet, because I just think you got great taste.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Yeah.
So I confess, I think I said before, I'm not a huge cookbook person. I do like them as like beautiful books, like objects. As from like my day-to-day cooking, if I need anything, I usually just like turn to the internet for recipes and New York Times cooking. I have a subscription. But for like as cookbooks as sort of like a literary object, I do have a few. Like I have a copy of Samin Nosrat's Sulfate Acid Heat, and I still like love to go through that just to sort of become more educated, I guess, on the basics and fundamentals of cooking. There's some really great books by Phaedon, like just by different cookbook authors, but definitely more sort of like art objects. Like I love the way that they lay out their pages and have the art and the photos take center stage and have so much about like travel aspects or different cultural aspects. They have that in there. That's sort of the extent of my experience with cookbooks, I guess. I would
you're not a big
I mean, if anyone has recommendations for things that are like yeah, like really good reading, like great essays, great photos, great anything else. I would love some more cookbook recommendations.
I was reading Women on Food recently, Charlotte Druckmann's
Oh, yeah.
anthology. I love that book. I've been trying to shout it out to many people because I feel like it's been a few years, and just come back to that book is important. It's just a really well edited book. We ask all of our guests on the Taste podcast if you could write a cookbook or food book without the burden of time, like a deadline or budget, like you had endless money. Jenny, what would that book be?
I guess I would love to do maybe a more travel-oriented cookbook or food book, like maybe traveling throughout China. My family is like Chinese American, obviously, and then traveling throughout China, collecting the recipes of other people, since I'm not like much of a recipe developer myself, and treating it more like a travelogue or kind of an anthropological project. So I know like Fuchsia Dunlop, her books on Chinese cooking are really good, like really well researched, just very thorough. So she kind of has that covered. But yeah, I guess for myself, I treat it as an opportunity to go traveling and sort of like write down other people's stories a little bit.
I love that. What would be a region of China that you'd want to focus on that maybe gets a little less coverage? Is there some place there that you'd want to go and focus on?
Well, my dad's side of the family is from Wenzhou, like this sort of mid-sized city called Wenzhou in the Zhejiang region. So that is a place that doesn't get a whole lot of like sort of mainstream, Western media coverage. And I'd be interested in starting there, I guess, especially because, the geography of Wenzhou and some of its surrounding places, it's kind of very specific. It's very mountainous. So there was sort of a lot of isolated development, sort of outside the pockets of, how the rest of the country was developing at certain points in history. So I have always been really curious about, how that has affected everything from the food to manufacturing to cultural traditions to, dialects there that are quite different from other dialects in China. So maybe I'd be interested in starting there.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think if you could travel and your point of view would be very unique and very, you and use some of the memoir writing that you've done, I feel that would be a really cool project to read as a reader.
Thank you. I guess maybe I will think about that as a future project.
Jenny Zhang, thank you for joining the Taste Podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
The Taste Podcast is hosted by Matt Rodbard and me, Anna Heasel. The show is produced by Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Our theme music is by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Thanks for listening.